All right, hey guys, welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name's Curtis, and today we're gonna be talking about one of my favorite houses in perfumery, hands down. That's the house of Meo Fusciuni. Are you familiar with this house? This is an artisanal niche house, and I first discovered Meo Fusciuni a couple years ago when I had gone to the No Shop in Tokyo. I smelled one of their fragrances, Little Song, and from that point on, I knew that this is a house, this is a perfumer that I really needed to follow. And over the course of a few years, I've collected a few other fragrances from the house, so I definitely want to talk about this house today. So if you're curious to hear my thoughts and opinions on the house of Meo Fusciuni, then let's go. All right, so the house of Meo Fusciuni. So Giuseppe, he's the perfumer, and this is his house, Meo Fusciuni. So he is from Italy, and he is an absolute master of being able to express his emotion in the form of fragrance. It's almost like he's journaling or, writing in a diary. Then after he's done, he rips that page out, he rolls it up, shoves it into the bottle. And when you spray on that perfume, you're able to basically, understand what he was saying in his journal or diary. He's that descriptive with his creations, and it's just amazing. And yeah, this is hands down one of my favorite niche houses, but even more so artisanal niche houses in perfumery for sure. And for me personally, the way that these fragrances have resonated with me, most of these fragrances for me are masterpieces, like 10 out of 10 masterpiece fragrances. They just speak to me personally. And I think I think these fragrances take a lot of understanding. Meo is giving you his story, but I think these fragrances are also, it takes time to build a personal connection with these. And that's definitely been the story for me. I didn't necessarily understand some of these fragrances when I first wore them and purchased them. The understanding took many wearings, and I feel like each time that I wore these fragrances, it was like I was turning a page in the journal. And not only, in terms of understanding his story, Meo Fusciuni's story, but, making a personal connection for myself. But yeah, these are all amazing fragrances. And so if you haven't heard of the House of Meo Fusciuni and you're into artisanal niche perfumery, then you should definitely check them out. But before I even start jumping into these fragrances, I quickly want to say that if you're someone who puts performance over scent, meaning that you're looking for beast mode, room fillers, like types of fragrances, these are not that. So you're not going to get beast mode performance out of any of these fragrances. So if you're that type of person, then this probably isn't the house for you. But if you're someone who really appreciates perfumery and that's really looking for a story to be told in the fragrances that you wear, then you should definitely check out this house. This is, again, hands down, one of my favorites. All right, so let's jump into the fragrances. So I'm going to be talking about these fragrances in the order that I purchased them. So the first fragrance that I purchased from the house of Meo Fusciuni is Little Song. Now, when I was in Tokyo and I came across this fragrance house, I was looking at the note breakdown on the card. And yeah, a lot of times you can look at the note breakdown and, you'll think, oh yeah, I kind of have an idea of where this fragrance is going to go. But I think, as many of you know, a lot of times that means nothing and the fragrance goes down a totally different path. But when I looked at the note breakdown, I saw rose, tobacco, vetiver, and coffee. And I was like, match made in heaven. Like, the angels were sending me a message. And so I tried this one on paper and I immediately was blown away. But when I tried this one on skin, it completely opened up. And I was like, just mind blown. And I'll say, you can definitely pick up on that coffee and those tobacco nuances. And there's this very slight, very, very slight funkiness about this, but it's not overbearing, and it is tucked into the background ever so slightly, and that's coming from a bit of civet in here. But man, the rose in here is green, almost stemmy-like, but it blends so well with that vetiver, which is providing a bit of earthiness here. This is such a gorgeous and transportive wear. And one thing that I'll say about Meo Fusciuni, he's so good at capturing like a dark type of melancholic vibe in many of his fragrances. Not all. I would say at least the ones that I have, they all have a sense of melancholy about them. But I would say in two of them, he's able to capture this dark kind of melancholic vibe, almost like a somber tone. And you can definitely pick up on that in here. For me, this fragrance is just, dark, like I said before, melancholic, mysterious. It even has like a slightly haunting kind of nature about it. And I can't put my finger on why it kind of makes me feel that way, but it does. But this fragrance is just, there's also a sexiness about this that, and I don't know if it's because of the notes or just the way that this fragrance has been constructed, but my image of this, like, I feel like I could totally pull this off on a date night. Like, really. I mean, this is a very wearable fragrance. Don't let the fact that Meo Fusciuni is an artisanal niche house scare you. It's artisanal, but extremely wearable. Like, this is a very easy wear for me personally. Now, again, like all fragrances, it's very situational. So I would choose a situation where I wear this. This is not a daily driver for me. Like, this is more of like a special occasion type of scent, and just the way that it comes off. For you, this might be a daily driver. But for me, it's definitely more of a special occasion type of scent. Like a date night or something like that. That's when I would typically reach for a fragrance like this. But this is a unisex scent to me. This is right down the middle. Men or women can wear this. And, I wouldn't say that it pushes masculine or pushes feminine. I would say it's right down the middle. But this is a gorgeous wear and definitely one to check out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Little Song by Meo Fusciuni. All right, so my second purchase from the house of Meo Fusciuni was Viole Nere. All right, so this one is just beautiful, gorgeous. This is iris and violet that's combining together with a bit of woods to give it almost like it has a dark kind of somber tone about this one as well. Very melancholic, and it is quite powdery because you do have that iris and violet in here. So if you're not a fan of powdery fragrances, then you may want to step away. Now, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of powdery fragrances, but I have really grown to love this one, and I can see the art and the emotion that he poured into this fragrance. For me, when I wear this fragrance, I don't want to say that this is this is a fragrance that I reach for when I'm depressed, but like I said, there's kind of a dark, melancholic vibe about this, and just the notes that he used, I feel like fit perfectly for me. Like when it's a dark, kind of rainy day outside, this is a fragrance that I'll reach for when that weather kind of puts me in a certain mood, not necessarily a sad or depressing mood, but this is a fragrance that I feel fits that type of atmosphere perfectly. And so when it is in the springtime or in the fall, when we're having that type of weather, this is when I reach for that fragrance, just because I feel like it matches perfectly. But yeah, this is such a beautiful fragrance. Now, you do also have some earthiness in here from some vetiver, and there is a bit of rose that combines extremely well with the iris and violet in here. Now, you're not gonna really be able to pick up on the rose so much in here. It is tucked behind that iris and violet. That iris and violet are definitely the key players here. But that vetiver in here there's also, I think that vetiver is helping to not only provide an earthiness, but there's a very subtle green tinge that you're getting with this fragrance. But man, it is gorgeous. I'm telling you, gorgeous. In terms of like iris fragrances in my collection, this is the best one. This is again, one of those 10 out of 10 fragrances for me. But again, you have got to understand the house, I think really, and Meo's work to really appreciate a fragrance like this. And I think over time and over the wearing experiences, I've really started to understand, this fragrance. It's taken time. I wouldn't say that it was, I didn't think that it was a masterpiece from first sniff, but over time, that's the path that I'm going down. And that's the kind of understanding that's taken place with this one. And I think if I was gonna assign this fragrance a color, obviously it would be purple. And not necessarily a darker purple, but almost, because there is kind of a lightness about this. He's really good. Meo's really good of capturing like light and dark and putting it together so smoothly that it's almost difficult for me to explain. And I need to find a better way to explain this, but he's a master at doing that. But if you're someone who really appreciates kind of powdery iris fragrances, then I highly recommend a fragrance like this. Now, what I'll say is if you're looking online, a lot of people bash this fragrance because of its performance with its, sillage and projection and longevity. And I touched on sillage and performance in the beginning of this video with the majority of Meo's fragrances. For me, I get decent performance out of this. It's not as, one thing when you're reading things online, you need to take all that with a grain of salt. Fragrances work differently for everybody. So that's where sampling comes into play. You need to get yourself samples. And if you're someone who really puts performance as a priority, then sample it, see how it performs on your skin, because these fragrances aren't cheap. And blind buying, if you're trying to build a collection that you truly love, blind buying is not the way to go. Sample, sample, sample. I've made that huge mistake in the past of blind buying fragrances, and I ended up building a collection that I didn't truly love. So, sampling is the way to go. So definitely sample these fragrances, see how it performs off your skin. I get decent performance out of this, Same with Little Song, I get actually pretty good performance out of it. So yeah, definitely give this fragrance a sample. But if you're someone who really enjoys kind of powdery iris fragrances, check this one out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Viole Nere by Meo Fusciuni. All right, and the final fragrance I'll be talking about, and this is the newest release from the house of Meo Fusciuni. We have Isola. All right, so a couple weeks ago, I was watching my friend Daniel over at the channel Seldomly Often, and he had briefly talked about this fragrance. And I know he's a huge fan of Meo Fusciuni, as am I. And so he was briefly talking about this fragrance, and at the time, they didn't have this fragrance in Japan. And I think it was a couple days later, I had gone to Tokyo to the nose shop, not expecting to see this fragrance. And I, just passing by the Meo Fusciuni section, I was like, what? They had got this fragrance in that same day. And so I was like, oh man, I'm sampling this now. So I had the staff spray it on my skin, sampled it, immediately blown away. I picked this fragrance up, and on the train ride back, I'd sent Daniel a message. I was like, hey man, you're never gonna believe this. They had this one, so I picked it up. Yeah, I was pleasantly and just excited to see that they had this fragrance. But again, one of those fragrances that I would consider a 10 out of 10. Like, Meo just knocks it out of the park with his fragrance. And again, with this one, this was extremely refreshing for me to smell. I mean, not only in the sense that it was it's a refreshing scent in general, but it just shows Meo's ability to kind of step outside the box. I would say a lot of his fragrances are very dark, melancholic, bold in nature. They have a boldness about them. This fragrance kind of steps in a different direction. It does have kind of a melancholic feel about it in a way, very subtly, but this fragrance is more on the brighter side of things. This is a summer scent. Now, he has his story behind this fragrance is he's capturing a little bit of Japan and he's capturing a little bit of Italy in the summertime. And for Japan, he's using the note of yuzu in here. Yuzu is a very popular citrusy note. He's using it masterfully here, as well as the note of grapefruit, which I think, I think in his childhood, like he used to, I don't know exactly what it is, or how he's tying grapefruit into his time in Italy, but he's doing it in a way. And so he's using those two fruits and he's combining them beautifully here. And a lot of times you'll see when you're using those citrusy fruits, like they'll come up very zingy, zesty. I'm not really getting that here. It's kind of almost like he's using these citruses in a way, but it's almost like slightly subdued, but sparkly at the same time. And I don't know how to explain this very well, but again, he's using these citruses in a way that's quite unique, and it's not like your typical like summer citrus type of fragrances that you get that's super bright. Again, there's a brightness here, but it's subdued in a way. The way he's able to do that is just masterfully done. And those citruses are sitting on a very solid bed of lavender, and I do pick up on a little bit of lavender in here. And it's interesting, my wearing experience here, there is also some kind of green tinges, and that could be from some other notes that he has in here. But when I'm wearing this fragrance, you're definitely picking up on that greenness, those kind of subdued kind of citruses. But throughout the day, like I'll get different kind of wafts of this, and it almost kind of pushes my mind in like a fougere type of vibe. This is not a fougere, but it almost kind of makes me go down that path in a way. But this is not a fougere, but for some reason it kind of makes my mind kind of flip in that way. Not all the time, but when I get subtle whiffs sometimes, not every whiff, which is interesting. And that's something that I really like, because I feel like the whiffs that I get are kind of different in a way. Each waft that I get is different. So yeah, that's something that's magical about this fragrance. But this is a summer scent, and I've been wearing the heck out of this one. I've been putting the dent in this bottle for sure. And what I've done is, with this fragrance, I have a little 5 ml decant that I've decanted out, and I've already gone through 2 5 ml, so I've gone through 10 mils of this fragrance. But this is one of those fragrances that I get decent longevity. I would say about 7 or 8 hours actually, which is quite impressive, given the fact that this is quite a citrus dominant scent. But the reason why I've decanted it out is I would say probably at about the 5 hour mark, like this one starts to sit very close. 4 or 5 hour mark, it starts to sit very close, almost becomes a skin scent at that point. So I would say for about like 4 to 5 hours, it's projecting, and you're getting a sillage in more of like an intimate to moderate way, but it's creating a nice little bubble around you. But then after that, it kind of becomes a skin scent. But the reason why I decanted this out is because I like to reapply it throughout the day. So I have been wearing this one to work a lot, and I've received really good comments about this. Like, people tend to really, really enjoy this one. And if you guys don't know, I do live here in Japan. And so, this one actually goes off really well here. So I do like to reapply this one throughout the day. So that's why I've put it in a 5 ml decant. So after about like 5 hours or so, I tend to respray this one, but man, I love it. And I think this one is going to be my scent of the day today. But yeah, this is, again, he's just done, I really appreciate, I think a lot of times, like you'll see like perfumers, they'll create a fragrance and they'll kind of use that formula, for other brands and like for, even within their own line of fragrances. But I feel like Meo's fragrances are so different each time because, again, like I said, it's his emotion that he's pouring into this bottle. He feels different all the time. Different experiences bring different emotions, and that's what he's putting into the juice here. So I think that's one reason why I'm such a huge fan of his fragrances, and just kind of yeah, his character in general. He's just a unique character. Very humble guy, and yeah, I appreciate him, and I appreciate Meo Fusciuni as a house. But yeah, Isola, if you're someone who's looking for a summery style of fragrance, then you should definitely check this one out. This is a 10 out of 10 for me, as with all of the fragrances that I have for his line. Now, I haven't smelled all of the fragrances from the house of Meo Fusciuni, but the ones that I have, I can easily say are 10 out of 10s for me. They may not be for you, but for me, they are 10 out of 10s. But this is a beauty and definitely one to check out. So if you can, get yourself a sample of Isola by Meo Fusciuni. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. And let me know down in the comment section, are you familiar with the house of Meo Fusciuni? What are your thoughts and opinions on the house? Well, I hope you guys are staying healthy and well, and I'll see you in the next video.